Thank you very much. Good morning and welcome to yet another program of Disaster and You on DBS Radio with your host, Carlisle JnoBaptiste, here on DBS Radio. Of course, it is a program hosted by the Office of Disaster Management in the Commonwealth of Dominica. You know that we missed you last week and week before last. Last week we had to give way for the World Creole Music Festival, the final press conference, and the week before last there was Parliament, and of course we also had to give way to you for that. But we are happy to be back on yet another program on Disasters and You. As we move across the island, the length and breadth of Dominica, people are giving us the feedback and telling us how interesting that program is and how they have been in tuned to the program every Thursday from 9:30 a.m. to 10:30 a.m. right here on your nation's station, DBS Radio. And before I go any further, let me take this opportunity to wish all our many fans, and we hope that you had a wonderful World Creole Music Festival. You did not party too hard, and you are up and about and moving, because of course we are gearing up for another long weekend. So you have to ensure that you were properly hydrated and you did not party too much. I want to also say hello and happy birthday to my son, Clyde JnoBaptiste, celebrating 25 in 25 from all of us. We wish you all the best, God's love, guidance, and protection from your sisters, Akira, Krishana, and of course your niece and nephew, Kiara and Khalil, and of course your mother, Francisca, and all the extended family and friends. Do enjoy your birthday, 25 in 25, Clyde, my big son. Of course, so now we also want to remind you that there's a public speaking competition in Disaster Risk Management 2025. It's entitled Voices for Resilience. The date is November 14th, 2025, and the venue, the ODM Conference Room, and that will begin at 10 a.m. And disaster preparedness, you have to explain how communities can prepare before a disaster strikes. The response strategies describe actions to take during a disaster to reduce risk and save lives. And the final one is recovery and mitigation. Present ways to recover after a disaster and prevent or lessen future impacts. So, 14th November, place ODM Conference Room, 10 a.m. down at Jimit. And also, there's another competition, Youth Voices for Disaster Preparedness and Risk Reduction, peer-to-peer social media competition. And the flyer says, are you between the ages of 12 and 18 years old and enjoy creating content for social media? The competition guidelines: you have to create a fun and powerful message focused on disaster preparedness or risk reduction using TikTok, Instagram, X, or Facebook, and you could win the grand prize of US $1,000. All you need to do is a short video, maximum 60 seconds, spoken words jingle, maximum 60 seconds, animation or reel, maximum 60 seconds, high quality social media poster or graphics. That is 1000, that is 80 by 1080 pixels. And you have to pick your topic: hurricane preparedness, earthquake readiness, food preparedness, tsunami readiness, and volcano readiness. And you have to submit completed entry, or you should have submitted completed entry by last week to qualify. So if you fail to do that by last week, then you would have failed to qualify. And of course, the prizes are great prizes. The first prize will get US $1,000, second prize US $750, and the third prize US $500. And that is in conjunction with SIDEMA. So we also continue to give you prizes. And you may have heard yesterday that there was a 6.55 magnitude earthquake that struck. And of course, a lot of us felt it in Dominica. Minimum, or I should say no damage done to Dominica, but people, they got frightened. And that is why we always ask you to be prepared. And so as we speak about that, I will talk to you about evacuation plans, because we have a family disaster plan checklist, a kit. The Office of Disaster Management, we have that kit. And in that, we have a family disaster plan. We have important activities when preparing your family disaster plan. Know your risk. What is a hazard? What is a disaster? What is disaster risk? Types of hazards. Basic family risk assessment. Thinking it through. Communication plan. Emergency kit. Evacuation plan. Hazard preparedness and safety resources. And like you are aware, the family disaster plan, Dominica is prone to multiple natural hazards due to its geological topography and geographical location. Like other countries, human-induced hazards also present a threat. Climate change and variability are set to cause more intense weather events such as severe hurricanes and tropical storms, heavy rains, and flash floods. The mountainous and steep topography of the island makes it highly susceptible. Oh, this word got me. To landslides, especially during intense or heavy rainfall events. The island is located in active island arc of the Lesser Antilles and has 9 potentially active volcanoes. So we know of our 9 active volcanoes. So given the highly vulnerable nature of Dominica, the Office of Disaster Management promotes the adoption of a prepared lifestyle by the public, taking the time to have a well-prepared family or personal disaster plan. Your anxiety over you and your family well-being whenever the island is under imminent threat from a hazard could be greatly reduced. And now we move into the important activities when preparing your family plan. Assess your risk to the hazards that could affect you. Learn more about these hazards and plan what you can do to reduce impact and to be safe. Create a family emergency communication plan. Create a 72-hour emergency kit. Develop an emergency evacuation plan. And those things are very, very important. Now, we go into the types of hazards. Here are some examples of hazards. Dominica experienced most of these natural hazards in the past. Natural hazards, tropical cyclones, depression, tropical storms, hurricanes, volcanic eruptions, earthquakes, tsunamis, landslides, flood, drought, biological hazards including epidemics and pandemics, and man-induced hazards. Of course, there are man-induced hazards. We have fire, cyber attack, toxic chemical spills, explosion, civil strife, power failure, invasion, terrorism, shipwreck, pollution, aircraft, and oil spills. So, as we move further, we have the basic family risk assessment. We also have the communication plan, and I will delve into the communication plan. Now you are to prepare your emergency communication plans. A family emergency communication plan ensures that households and other important contacts are available to your family, especially seniors and children. I'll go over that again. That is very, very important. A family emergency communication plan ensures that households and other important contacts are available to your family, especially seniors and children. So often, we seem to forget our seniors, and our communication plan tells you that our seniors are very, very important factors in that, and of course, also our children. It also helps family to regain contact should they become separated in an emergency or disaster situation. Ensure each family member has a copy of this plan and that it is easily accessible for all to see. It must include contacts for all householder mobile phones, other members such as work, school, child care providers, friends, and neighbors. You need to also discuss and decide where you will evacuate to as a family. Discuss where to go if you are unable to return home. You must have that. You must plan. And if you fail to prepare, of course, you will fail to plan, because you have to plan and you have to prepare. So you need to decide where you will evacuate. You look at the entire situation, look at your plan, and decide if we're going to go through this door, that door, the side door, or if there's a window. You need to plan that, and you need to discuss that with your family household. Those things are very, very important. Depending on the type of emergency, you need to decide on how you would keep in touch with where you would meet. So again, depending on the type of emergency, you need to decide where you are going to meet, because there must be a meeting point. So each and every one of all you can meet, make contact, and then decide. So again, cell phone, you need to have your cell phone, landline, text message, satellite phones, ham radio, etc. Those things are extremely, extremely important. You need to select 2 meeting places in case of an emergency. One in your neighborhood, another outside your neighborhood, and select locations where everyone can easily get to meet each other. Again, I'll go through that. Select 2 meeting places in case of an emergency. One in your neighborhood and another outside your neighborhood, and select locations where everyone can easily get to meet. You need to also identify family members or friends who do not live with you locally and off island to be household emergency contacts. In case you and your family become separated, ensure everyone knows how to contact these people. Where possible, children should memorize their home and parents' cell phone numbers. Very important. Children should memorize their home and parents, and also close affiliates' cell phone numbers. Remember to plan for persons with disabilities. Again, often we forget those with disabilities. We forget sometimes our senior citizens, our elderly, and our young ones. So, consider putting their cell phones on easy mode and include critical emergency numbers and their contacts. Ensure the writing, the numbers are large enough and can be read easily during an emergency. Where necessary, teach them how to use their devices. Sometimes our family members, we just give them a phone for a phone's sake, and we do not teach them how to use their phones. And then sometimes their phones is not even properly charged. That is important. You need to ensure that those phones are properly charged, because if that is not the case, then we are looking for trouble. Now, we are going to deal with the emergency kit, a family emergency kit or go bag, and that is intended to provide personal comfort and care to you and your family during times when you do not have access to the comfort of your home or familiar environment. Where possible, your emergency kit should be designated to support your family for at least 3 days, and that is 72 hours. Make preparing your emergency kit a fun activity and get everyone in the household involved. Use this activity to teach children about emergency planning and preparedness. Allow them to pack their personal emergency bag or add their favorite comfort item to the go bag. Consider the needs of each and every family member, including age group, special needs, or any disabilities, and special diets. And I pause there because sometimes some of us, we have special diets. There are things some of us are allergic to. Some of us cannot eat this, some of us cannot eat that. So we have to take that into consideration. And of course, our medical kit, that is very, very important. If you're hypertensive, if you're diabetic, all those things must, and I repeat, must be taken into consideration. Discuss medical conditions of household members, including essential medications and dosages in your emergency kit. Again, as I said, if you're hypertensive, if you are diabetic, it is important to ensure that those medications are placed in that bag, because you do not want, when you're getting set to go, they are not there and you will need that medication, and only to find that that medication would have been left at home. And in critical conditions, in critical times, you need that. You need to also make copies of important documents and store them in different locations if it is safe to do so, or store copies electronically. Have a waterproof container to store documents. Important documents, passports, birth certificates, marriage certificates, all those land papers, all those things must be stored properly, must be in a safe place. And I say safe, in a waterproof bag, waterproof container, because you do not want them being soiled by water, because water, can cause a lot of damage. So ensure that those things are stored properly. And here are some items that should be included in your emergency kit: birth, marriage and other certificates, passport and other travel documentations, immunization cards, your personal IDs, land title like I just said a while ago, your mortgage title, your will. If you've made a will, you want to ensure that that is kept in a safe place, in a safe environment. Your lease agreement. Some of us may have a lease agreement with some people, and we want to ensure that that too is kept in a safe place. Proof of occupancy, utility bills, insurance, life, health, house, car, and others. Those insurance documents are extremely important. We know after Hurricane Maria what transpired. Some of us, we were looking for our documents, we could not find them. And sometimes too, we also wait for last minute, and some of us, we were caught off guard because some of us did not ensure that, look, our house was not properly insured. Our vehicle was not properly insured. And so some of us lost our vehicle. Our house was extremely damaged. And when we went looking at our insurance documents, we started to cry because we did not have proper insurance for our house. So let us ensure that that is not the case. We cannot allow that to happen to us, because if we allow that to happen to us, that is going to be detrimental. Also, our medical documents. We must have also a list of important contacts, family, doctors, insurance agents, our banking information, photo inventory of personal belongings. And then we get to our basic supplies. Drinking water. We need to have at least 1 gallon per person per day. Non-perishable foods, canned meat, fish, fruits, and or vegetables. Manual can opener, cookies, candy, or dry fruits. Canned soup or non-perishable milk, powdered milk or single-serve drinks, instant tea or coffee. Some of us, we like our coffee, so we need to have that. Also, many times, during those storms, we have situations where all our little garden that we would have stored up would have been damaged. Our basilic would be gone. Our lime trees would be gone. And all those things would be damaged. And so our little basilic, our cime comptoir, our vetiver, all our other bushes would be damaged. And so we would not be able to get them. So during that time, if we can store all our zeb shepherdtier, and all our other bushes, we need to store them at this point in time. Pas espérer les mauvais temps pour nous commencer à faire bagay. Nous ne pouvons faire tout le temps. Pas espérer les mauvais temps pour nous courir descendre dans le supermarché là, pour nous commencer à acheter bagay. Nous ne pouvons faire ça plus bonheur. Nous avertir. Puis vous savez, nous en mauvais temps. Tout actuellement, moun en Jamaïque, vous savez ça qu'a fait actuellement. Puis bagay la chaud là. Nous parlons respect les mauvais temps pour nous commencer à acheter bagay. Nous ne pouvons mettre quoi nous en ordre. Nous ne pouvons mettre case nous en ordre. Of course, extra cash, a whistle, mosquito repellent, first aid kit, including aspirin, antibiotic cream, and all the likes. Our personal supplies, prescription medicines, 1 month supply, and a copy of prescription. We'll take a little pause there just to remind you that you are listening to Disasters and You, a program of the Office of Disasters Management. I'm your host, Carlisle JnoBaptiste, Communications Officer at the Office of Disaster Management. We take a quick pause and we'll be right back.
I begging you live a free pure Dominican lifestyle for man, woman and child. I begging you live a free pure Dominican lifestyle for man, woman and child. For when disaster strikes, yeah. For when disaster strikes, oh, yeah. I begging you live a free Dominican lifestyle for man, woman and child. I'm begging you live a pure Dominican lifestyle for man, woman and child. For when disaster strikes, yeah. For when disaster strikes, oh, yeah.
Thank you very much. Welcome back to our program. And again, I just want to remind you that there's a public speaking competition in disaster risk management, Voices for Resilience. The date is November 14th, 2025, and the venue is the Office of Disaster Management Conference Room in Jimit. The time is 10 a.m. And we have the topics: disaster preparedness. You have to explain how communities can prepare before a disaster strikes. Response strategies. Describe actions to take during a disaster to reduce risk and save lives. Recovery and mitigation. Present ways to recover after a disaster and prevent or lessen future impacts. Again, it's a public speaking competition, November 14th, 2025, 10 a.m., Office of Disaster Management. And so we continue with our family disaster plan checklist. We were on our personal supplies. As I told you earlier on, from personal supplies, you have prescription medicines, and you have the female hygienic products. Remember your toilet paper, toothpaste, toothbrushes, deodorant, change of clothing, extra eyeglasses or contacts, entertainment books, games, toys, and magazines. Something for you to read, to get you away from that anxiety, to keep you occupied, because you know that when a disaster is approaching, we get excited, we get frightened, and we need something to get us distracted. So if you have a book, a little novel, a little comic book, some old newspapers, you can carry that with you, and you will read it, read the front page, read the editorial, and get your mind occupied. That is very, very important. Of course, your hand sanitizers, rubbing alcohol, preferably 70%. You also need unscented bleach or water purification tablets, and add about 8 drops of bleach per gallon. Baby supplies, disposable diapers, formula, food and medication, bottles and feeding utensils. And of course, persons with disabilities. Again, I need not stress further, we cannot forget the persons with disabilities, also our senior citizens. And the persons with disabilities, your white cane, mobility cane, walker, wheelchair, tire repair kit, extra prescribed eyeglasses, contact lenses and contact solutions, backup hearing aid and hearing aid batteries. Of course, pet supplies. And just before I go to that, just again, always want to remind you that when you go into the shelter, the emergency shelters, remember, you are not to take your animals with you at the emergency shelter. Always remember that. So, you need to have a contingency plan for your pets, your dogs, your cats, etc. And so, your pet supplies, dry and or canned foods, ID tags and collars, proof of recent immunization, water, because you need to ensure that your pets are properly hydrated. It's very, very important. And the litter box and the litter supplies. The cats, ensure that wherever they are being kept, they have the litter boxes with them. Other useful supplies to have on hand where possible should there be extended disruption to services. Toolbox, masking tape or duct tape, outdoor extension cords. Those things are very, very important. And again, as we continue our evacuation plan, it is very essential that many kinds of emergencies can cause you to have to evacuate. In some cases, you may have a day or two to prepare. Again, if there's a pending hurricane, you will have a day or two to prepare. So, you will know what you have to do, the do's and don'ts. So, while other situations might call for an immediate evacuation, planning is vital to making sure that you can evacuate quickly and safely no matter what the circumstances. You need to learn, or before an evacuation, learn the types of hazards that are likely in your community and the local emergency evacuation and shelter plans for each specific hazard. You need to consider any special needs of you or your family members, including access to constant power, safe water or oxygen, and whether these are best met at home or other external locations. You need to also decide how you will care for your pets. I spoke about that earlier on. Decide if it is safe for you to shelter in a place, in certain places, at home, if it's a workplace or school, or evacuate. Decide if you shall shelter at your neighbor's place or the public shelter, and know how you will leave to get to this location. Again, we will tell you where your shelters are, where they are located, the numbers of the persons, how to reach them, and we will tell you when the shelters are open. Very, very important. So you need to know those things. Know where your shelter location is located. Again, I spoke about that. And of course, if you go online, you can access www.odm.gov.dm. I'll give you that again, www.odm.gov.dm. If you go on that site, you will get the locations of your various shelters, the shelter managers, the assistant shelter managers, and you will get all that information. If you evacuate to a public emergency shelter, you need to follow the latest guidelines from the Ministry of Health for protecting yourself and your family from any contagious diseases. Be prepared to take cleaning items with you, like soap, hand sanitizer, disinfecting wipes, or general household cleaning supplies to disinfect surfaces. Also have on hand protective supplies such as masks and gloves. Masks and gloves are very, very important because for whatever reason or reasons, you may end up somewhere where someone in one of the shelters may be sick, maybe have a cold, maybe coughing. And you know, in those situations there, lots of things can happen. So it's very, very important that you have your mask with you, because you may need to wear them at that very, very important juncture. Identify several places you could go in an emergency, such as at a friend's home, in another community, or even off island. Sometimes you may decide, well, you have time. You'll say, okay, the hurricane is going to strike us in Dominica, and I think I have a family in Martinique, in Guadeloupe, in St. Lucia, in Antigua, in Barbados. And perhaps I'd want to go and spend that time with them. You may want to book your flight to get out, and get out very early. So if you plan to do that, you have to book that very early. Do not wait on last minute, because chances are the airport, air and seaport may very well be closed, and getting out will be extremely difficult. You do not want to waste time when you do those necessary changes. So all those things must be borne in mind. Also, always follow the instructions of local officials, and remember that your evacuation route may be on foot depending on the type of disaster. Sometimes where you have to evacuate must be on foot, and you have to evacuate very early. Again, I stress, do not wait on the last minute. Get out and get out early, especially if you have vulnerable people among you. That is, your senior citizens and some persons with disabilities. You cannot wait on last minute to get out with them, because you definitely will encounter difficulties. Charge devices. You need to charge your devices and consider getting backup batteries in the event of power outages. Most times, your power will be gone. So you need to ensure that your phone is properly charged. And as I speak about that, sometimes some of us waste time, unnecessary time on the phone when we don't have to, and then we kill our battery. Then when we need our battery charged, when we need to make contact, my battery dead but you wasted time. You on the phone, you on Facebook, you were doing all kind of unnecessary things where you had to relax yourself, ensure that your battery was properly charged, and put yourself in order. Mette kayo en order. Mette tout bagay en order. Pour tout ça ou ni pou faire. Ou pas te ka faire ça. Et puis là ou ni pou quitter kayo, là ou ni pou faire affaire ou pas ça faire. Ou gaspiller temps. Ou ka parler puis un moun à si téléphone là, ka parler inutile. Là ou supposé là ka garder affaires. Ensure that you do not do those things. It's very, very important, people. Assemble supplies that are ready for evacuation. Pas pon bagay ou pas supposé pon. Ou sou pas ni pou pon ça, quitter ça là. Ou le pon tout bel had, tout bagay qui pas nécessaire. Leave those unnecessary supplies, those unnecessary things behind you. Do not carry unnecessary load with you. Prepare an emergency kit. As I said earlier, a go bag you can carry when you evacuate on foot or public transportation, and supplies for traveling longer distances if you have a car. As we speak of if you have a car, keep a full tank of fuel if an evacuation seems likely. So, pas espérer là où ni pour aller pour dire mani gas tank là, mani diesel. Allez ça, il tota pour ou pas à courir descendre dans gas station là. Puis allez ça là, il keni comme voiture là. Et puis ça qui ka gaspiller temps. So ou savent que chay ka vini, mauvais temps. Là ou savent une voiture ou aller à gas station là ou make sure ou plein tankou et puis gaz ou et puis ou aller faire affaire. Pas gaspiller temps, pas wete la ka parler inutile. Fais affaire et fais affaire vite. Keep a full tank of fuel in it at all times in case of an unexpected need to evacuate. Because gas stations may be crowded. When we do ça, I told you the gas station might be very well crowded or maybe closed. Lile, gas station la fermé. Et puis lile, yo pas même ni gaz. Puis à l'essa là, tout le monde ka vini acheter gaz. Tout le monde ka vini acheter diesel. Yo ni bidon yo. Puis yo le mette gaz yo là pour mettre a generator là. A voiture yo. So you do not wait for this last minute call, people. Ensure that you are prepared. Don't be like the five foolish virgins who did not trim their lamps. It's very, very essential. Plan to take one car per family to reduce congestion and delay. So si zon ni 4 voitures, ça ou kale pon 4 voitures pour. Ou kale à dans plus gros voiture qui te laisse derrière et puis pon sa zone pour pon. Pas gaspiller temps encore. If you do not have a car, then plan how you will have it needed, or you will leave if needed. Decide with family, friends, or your local emergency management office how to find out what resources may be available. Okay, and we are now going to deal with during the evacuation. Visit the office of the disaster management, that is at the ODM, and we have a website or Facebook page for your list of shelters, as I mentioned earlier on. Listen to a battery-powered radio and follow local evacuation instructions. Et puis nous ni radio, mais nous pas ni un radio qui a servi batterie. So, mon ka do en advance. Make sure ou ni un radio qui a servi batterie. Puis les il pas que ni électricité et pour pas que ça coûte pièce rien. Ou qui en là et pour ou que ka chiller. Mon Dieu, ça qu'a fait de wa non, ça moni pour faire. Ou pas les faire ça. Ou les savent ou ka coûter et pour savent ça qui a fait. Also, remember, as I said earlier on, take your emergency supply. Leave early. Encore, mon disant ça, quittez bonnet. Pas espérer pour dernier moment pour quitter place là. Puis les ou pas que ça quitter. Les police la passe à wande ou. Puis les ou ka qui est les police là. Changer ou tenir temps ou savent. Nous devons quitter ou pas quitter et pour espérer dernier moment. Et puis les bagailles viennent chaud, qui fait bagaille qu'a fait. Ou ka qui est police là. Changer police là ni travail les autres travail pour y faire. Police là à laisse ça là, peut-être pas que ça wande ou, pas que ça wande famille. Et puis ou que était là et puis ou commencer pleurer bagaille qu'a fait. Don't wait for last moment. If you have a disability, you have an elderly or require special assistance, plan to go to the shelter early for ease of accommodation. I spoke about that earlier on. If you have disability, you have a senior citizen, and you need assistance, you may have to call the police, you may have to call the fire officials, you may have to call the ambulance. Call them very, very early. Seek help very, very early. Don't wait for the last minute, because too late may very well be your cry. We do not want at that time that persons with disability, vulnerable persons among us, cannot be helped. Call the off-island contact in your family. As I spoke about that earlier, family communications plan. Tell them where you are going. So you have family contacts, you let them know that, hey, I'm going to the home of Jane Brown. And this is the local contact number for Jane Brown. Just in case. So they cannot be overexcited. Sometimes they are trying to reach you and they cannot reach you. So they have your number and Jane Brown's number. And do not have them just keep calling Jane Brown. Because Jane Brown also needs to ensure that Jane Brown's number is saved and the battery does not die down. So don't have them calling Jane Brown and you on the phone chatting with them and keeping Jane Brown's number occupied. Pas fait ça non. Pas fait yo kan kiye Jane. Because Jane ni sa fay pour faire aussi. Jane ni pour ka garder toute bagaille qui ka fait. So pas fait femme ou ka kiye pièce ça pas bon. Pas fait ça pièce. Also, you need to unplug electrical equipment such as radios, televisions, and small appliances. Leave freezers and refrigerators plugged in unless there is a risk of flooding. If there is damage to your home, shut off water, gas, and electricity before leaving. I'll remind you again. Leave freezers, or I will tell you, unplug electrical equipment such as radios, televisions, and small appliances. Leave freezers and refrigerators plugged in unless there is a risk of flooding. If there is damage to your home, shut off water, gas, and electricity before leaving. Leave a note telling others when you left and where you are going. So pa ni ale, ma cheke choy, ou ka ma cheke choy ka di, hello, mwen ale akay tel moun, epi si ou vle mwen, sa se limowa ou sa tape mo. That is the number that you can reach me at. Mwen akay tel moun, epi si la moye, tout bagay en ordre. Mwen mette tout bagay mo en ordre, epi mwen ale la, epi mwen la, epi tel moun. Pa fe ko, pa fe, ani pa mette tout bagay en lide ou. Tout bagay bon even mwen, epi se la moye. Everything is safe with me. I am at the home of this person. This is the number that you can reach me at. So if I'm looking for you, someone is looking for you, you can be easily located. Now, wear sturdy shoes and clothing that provides some protection, such as long pants, long sleeve shirts, and a hat. Check with neighbors who may need a ride. Sometimes, some of us, we just leave and we forget our neighbor. And we forget that we are our own neighbor's keeper. We have to look, especially in those times of disaster, we have to look for one another. Le bagay sa ka fet, le mauvais temps. Nous ne pouvons garder pour yon et l'autre. On ne peut garder pour moi. Mon ne peut garder pour. Mon supposé savent ou la ou ye. Ou supposé savent ou la mon ye. So, pas ni quitter et puis pas di voisinage ou la ou kale. Voisinage supposé savent ou la ou ye. Puis c'est le voisinage ou ka garder pour. So, pas l'oublier ça. C'est important. Be mindful that roads could be blocked from landslides during a hazard, impact, and as tropical cyclones, heavy rains, earthquake, or volcanic eruptions. Be alert for road hazards such as washed out roads or bridges and downed power lines. Do not drive into flooded areas. Et puis, di nou, le bagay fait. Là, il y a cyclone, là, il y a différents mauvais temps. Nous, un téléphone, line à terre, nous allons mettre ça. Pas mettre ça. Et puis, nous allons couper. Pas mettre les bagailles ça là. Puis, ou pas jamais savent. Et puis, là, où aller couper, ou qu'a fait dommage, ou qu'a fait plus dommage. You are doing more damage than anything else. So do not interfere with electrical poles. Leave them where they are. Take note of that. Now, let's deal with after an evacuation. So if you are returning to a disaster-affected areas after significant events, prepare for disruptions to daily activities. And remember that returning home before debris is cleared is dangerous. You want to return home right after a disaster. That may not be possible. Peut-être ça pas possible. So pontan koute pour radio a. Là yo di ou sa ale dehors. When they say that you can leave and go out. Let friends and family know before you leave and when you arrive. Encore. Make sure voisinage ou famille ou savent là ou ka quitter et puis là où vive place là qui est yo di yo mon vive et puis tout bagay en ordre. Bring supplies such as water and non-perishable food for the car ride if available. Charge devices if possible and consider getting backup batteries in case power outages continue. Ale sa la, pitet, light la poko viye. So, ou ka viye akayou, ou ni pou ensure that tout bagay in order. Ensure that everything is in order. Only use generators outside and away from your home, and never run a generator inside a home or garage. Very, very important. Only use generators outside and away from your home, and never run a generator inside a home or garage. Et puis nous anile mette generator on, et puis nous ka mette n'importe place. Nous pas mêler. Nous ka mette generator n'importe place. So sav ou la ou ka mette generator ça là. So encore safety tips during high surf, and I'll give you those safety tips during high surf and small craft warning events. All users of the sea should exercise caution, including all boat operators. Small craft operators should ensure small equipments are properly secured. This is not a good time for beach trip. All sea bathers stay out of the water. Persons living along the coast or traversing coastal areas, particularly low-lying areas, should be on the lookout for possible flooding from sea water intrusion. Landslides such as falling rocks and mudslides are more frequent during times of heavy rains. Some areas that are generally prone to landslides and hazards includes on or at the base of slopes or steep hills, on the cliffs, and you know that, under the Kinfield Cliff, under the Layu Cliff, etc., etc. Existing old roads, landslide areas at the base of the top of a steep or cut slope or hill. Be alert. Be alert. If you live or work in landslide-prone areas during heavy rains. When driving, look out for falling rocks or collapsed roadways. I'll tell you that again. Be very, very alert. If you live or work in landslide-prone areas during heavy rainfalls. When driving, look out for falling rocks or collapsed roadways. So, this, in a nutshell, is part of our family disaster plan checklist. I'm hoping that the information that was given to you today was very, very beneficial, and you will ensure that as we get through this hurricane season, that you ensure that you have those things in order and you do not wait for the last minute to prepare. Remember, we're still in the hurricane season. We're getting off it. Preparedness. Be prepared. What not to do during a hurricane. Do not wait to hear the category of the hurricane to prepare. Hurricane strength can move from category 1 to category 5. And as you are aware, what happened during Hurricane Maria and now Hurricane Melissa, that moved from a category 1 and moved very rapidly into a category 5. And we have to again continue to pray for the people of Jamaica. We need to keep the people of Jamaica in our prayers because we do have lots of family and friends in Jamaica. We have our students in Jamaica. And as you heard from the Minister of Education, that contact was made with persons in Jamaica, with our students, and basically those who were supposed to be in contact with. And so far, everything is in order. They are safe for the time being. But again, we need to continue to keep the people and all the folks of Jamaica in our prayers. And as I go, I leave you with, again, This reminder that the Office of Disaster Management is hosting a public speaking competition in Disaster Risk Management 2025, Voices of Resilience. The date, November 14th, 2025. The venue, Office of Disaster Management Conference Room. Time, 10 a.m. Disaster preparedness. You need to explain how communities can prepare before a disaster strikes. Response strategies. Describe actions to take during a disaster to reduce risk and save lives. Recovery and mitigation. Present ways to recover after a disaster and prevent or lessen future impacts. That's how we come to a wrap on yet another program on disasters and you right here on DBS Radio. I think next week, if memory serves me right, might be a holiday. I'm not too sure. I think so. If not, we should be back with yet another program on disasters and you. Same station, 9:30 to 10:30, right here on a nation station, DBS Radio. The Disasters and You program is brought to you by the Office of Disaster Management of the Commonwealth of Dominica. I'm Carlisle JnoBaptiste, Communications Officer of Disaster at the Office of Disaster Management, bidding you farewell and see you next time.